Today, on The Designer Recruiter, I'm joined by Laila Al-Yousuf, Design Director and Partner at Say Studio. Laila is an Emirati-American creative leader and lead AP, known for designing research-driven spaces that balance beauty, function, and sustainability. She is also the force behind the Search for Water design competition, inspiring designers to design for a cause and helping bring clean water to over 1 million people across 11 countries. At Say Studio, she's led teams delivering standout work for global brands including Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, PwC, and HP. In this episode, we are exploring what it means to build a purpose-driven career and the opportunities for Emirati nationals forging their path in design. Laila, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Can you please tell us a bit about you and what led you to create Say Studio?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So my name is Laila Al-Yousuf. I'm an Emirati-American interior designer. I first moved back out to the region. I grew up here actually, and then went to the US for university and came back in 2010. And I started working here within the field here. And then I actually was with Perkins & Will for 7 years. And at that point, it was when I had decided that I wanted to start up a design studio. And my business partner now, he and I had decided that back in 2018, we set up the business. So we are now 7.5 years old. We have a team of about 20 people. We have an office in Dubai. We have an office in Riyadh in Saudi as well. We do multiple different sectors that we operate within, but we're probably best known for the workplace sector. So we've designed for Pepsi, Google, PwC, Facebook, LinkedIn, multitude of different companies throughout the region.
How did you choose the name Say Studio?
Yeah, interesting question. I think a lot of people figure it out, but some people don't know and ask us. So we wanted to have a company that we didn't want to name it after ourselves, like very directly, because we wanted it to be more of like a group of individuals. But basically, it's just a mixture of our last names. So his last name is Sexton, my last name is Al-Yousuf, so S-A-Y. And we just thought it was kind of a fun play on words. And the idea that, you can have your own say with the designs that you're working on. So that was the say part. And then originally it was going to be design, say design. But we couldn't access that. Basically, there was I think there was no website available for that or something. So we ended up going with Say Studio, and I kind of like the repetition in that. So yeah, that's where the name comes from. It's a mixture of our last names, but it's not very obvious.
Yeah, I didn't actually figure it out. Sorry. So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is the fact that you are Emirati, and we have a lot of idea of misconception also sometimes.
Sure.
So first of all, I would like to know a bit more about your upbringing.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, of course. As I said, my father is from the UAE. My mother is American. So I kind of grew up in and I grew up in Dubai. So I grew up in a very sort of diverse, multicultural background. I always say it really helped shape the way that I think. I think Dubai itself also really helped shape the way that I think, just being exposed to the number of different cultures and countries that we have here. But in some ways there's some interesting overlaps with the two cultures, and in some ways they don't really meet in the middle. So it was a bit confusing. I say to people that I sort of feel like I'm from two countries and from neither in some ways. But I do think of it mainly as like a big driving factor in how I think, just because sometimes it is really so polarizing, the different cultures. So for example, growing up here, quite often, I was told like how to dress and who to talk to and how to be and how to act. And then I would go to the US and my family, they were like, why are you dressed so conservatively? It's so hot here. It's the summer. And, why don't you have a boyfriend and all of these things? So it was a little confusing from that perspective. But I think it helps me to communicate with people from lots of different countries around the world, because I feel like I have the benefit of coming from multiple cultures. So I'm able to understand people on different levels. So it's helped shape my thinking in a lot of ways. And ultimately, I think it's a benefit. It's also afforded me the opportunity of traveling around the world from a very young age, because I got to go back and forth all of the time and see all of the countries in between. So it's definitely been, it's kind of like a fundamental aspect of who I am, really.
And you studied in the US, right?
Yeah, so I grew up here, and all of my high school and everything was here. There were periods of time when I went back to the US, like the Gulf War and different things like that. But then I went to university in the US, and I ended up living there for a while and working there for a while. So I was there for a total of like 9 years, a period of stretch of 9 years, and then moved back here in 2010. Originally, it was meant to just be like working on one project, and then I was planning on going back to the US. So I put all my stuff in storage, and then I never went back. And I think it took me 4 years to get my stuff out of storage. But no, I came back for a small project that my uncles were working on, and they wanted me to work on it with them. And so we did that for a bit. And then once that finished, I actually just thought, there's actually more opportunities here right now. I think the U.S. Was at the start of a financial crisis, and it hadn't really hit here yet. So there were more opportunities here, whereas the people that I had gone to school with out there were struggling to find jobs, and here I was finding opportunities. So I decided to move back. And yeah, that was 15 years ago now that I've been back, which is just completely flown by.
Fly.
Yeah, it's completely flown by.
But yeah, there is this. So at the moment, there is an Emiratization campaign, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's great that Emirati get their chance here more than because there is a lot of expat. Like if I'm in my country, I would get more chances. But so we can see that. So 2% of the company must be Emirati national. And I have some clients struggling a bit with that because so a lot of them have been in government place before, and so they had to adapt their contract. So I have one client, to just give you an example, they will have a different contract for the non-Emirati, and the Emirati will have more lunch break, they have a coffee break in the contract as well, more work from home, shorter hour. So do you know why this is happening? Because I see you as opposite.
Yeah.
As you want to work more hours and doing the extra mile. So I don't try to do a generalization, but that's what I see on the market.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's a few different things in that question. The first thing is the Emiratization. I think it's a great thing, actually, because we have like a small population base here. And a lot of the people who are working here primarily working within the government sector. So these are basically just incentives to try to encourage Emiratis to work within the private sector and ultimately represent the working structure a little bit more evenly between government and the private sector. So I think that there is a lot of benefits in that. On the topic of writing a different contract, I don't know. It's for me. I would love to hear like more about it and what other companies are doing that. I actually never looked at it that way. Interestingly, the company that so after I worked with my uncles for a bit, I interviewed with a design firm here. They're no longer around, but they asked me this really strange question in the interview, which I didn't know how to respond in the moment. But basically, the question was, how do we know if we hire you that you're not going to be like all other Emiratis and come when you want and leave when you want and work how you want? And I was like shocked that anybody would ask me that. I think it was really offensive in a lot of ways. And my response to it was, that basically like my upbringing, my family, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. There's a lot of entrepreneurs in the family. I've taken a lot of inspiration from my uncles. And I think that, they're phenomenal, the things that they've done. So there's a lot of that in my background. And I think to be an entrepreneur, you do work harder in some ways, right? Because you're building something out of nothing. And if you stop, it can fall down. So that sort of was like my source of upbringing. And I think I very much had this kind of driving force within me my whole life that I wanted to achieve things on my own accord. I wanted to make my family proud. I wanted to make something of my life. I wanted to do something. So, I was like that typical sort of nerd kid. Like I didn't want, I wanted the best grades in the class. I wanted all A's. Like I wanted to push myself to be on top of like all of these different things or whatever. So to hear something like that, to be asked of me in an interview was really shocking, because you're judging me purely on my nationality and this kind of twisted sort of outlook that you have or perception that you have of the country here and the people that are here. So my response was basically, look, this is how I'm raised and this is my background and this is how I think. But to be honest, like I just found that really offensive that people have that perception. And I actually think that maybe in some way, I'm not judging or critiquing, but I think it could have a negative effect by treating people differently like that. I would want to be treated the same. I would want to be given the same opportunities. And I think that ultimately becomes like a source of inspiration because you want to be the same as everyone else, you know, and I think sort of making an environment for people where it's easier, you're treated differently, like people on the outside of that could also judge you. So, but yeah, I'm not judging. I mean, that's just maybe that's what that company thought that they needed to do to bring people into the organization. And I know it's a struggle. It's a struggle to find, to find enough kind of Emiratis within organizations because the public sector is really still quite captivating for a lot of Emiratis that are working here. And it is those reasons that you mentioned, you know, there's more public holidays, the hours are slightly different. My father worked in the government sector. But I think, you know, you look for the right person and give them the right opportunities. You can actually turn that into great leaders within the organization. But if you treat them differently, I'm not sure I don't know if there's a long term for that.
I absolutely love it. And I love what you said about Emirati women because actually, so I was discussing with my mom and in my country, we are still for same job. Men and women have different salary. And here in the UAE, there is a law, I read it since 2018, that you must pay equal salary for equal job and men and women. Yeah. And here it is actually happening. Like there is equal pay, almost like 95%. Women get 95% of the salary of men, which
it's got to be equal pay. It has to be equal pay. That doesn't make any sense anywhere anymore in this day and age that it's not equal pay. So I do think that, like, you know, that's something that everybody should be pushing towards. But I do have like some, because, you know, I love my stats too. Some interesting things to share. So because I knew you were kind of going to ask some of these questions, I was thinking like, what do we have in our company? You know, where do we start from that? So we have just under 20 people, 18 people, and 2/3 of our workforce are parents, which I was really happy to, as I said, like we don't look at these things, so we don't know the data until like, because you asked me, I was curious. 1/4 are mothers, which I thought was really remarkable as well. And then 50% of our breakdown, we have an exact even split, 9 men, 9 women. So that for me was like, I was really proud of those stats within the company. And it wasn't necessarily planned. I think it just kind of happened that way, but because we've been open to whoever comes to apply. So in terms of the participation in the workforce, the figure that I found, which relates to the UAE, is that the women participation in the labor workforce here is 54%. And I thought, like, does that sound high or low? So what it means basically is of the women who are working here who can work, 54% of them are actually working within the workforce here. Regionally, that figure is 19%. So I think that is a lot to say that we are way beyond the factor regionally. And then 20 years ago, the figure was 30% in the UAE. So basically, almost in that time frame that I've been back over that course, let's call it, you know, since I've kind of been working, that's how much it's changed. That is staggering, I think, that figure to go from 30% to 54%. I think it's a testament to the government and the different things that have been put into place, but also like the mindset has obviously been changing, and the mindset of the women has also been changing. So that's incredible. So the other thing to compare it was like when I said I wasn't sure, like what does that number mean? What do you think the figure is in the US? If it's 54% here, what would you say the figure is in the US? Women who can work and are working in the workforce.
But there is a lot of unemployment as well there, which we don't have here. So
True.
It will be less, I guess.
Do you think it's less than 54?
Yeah.
Okay, no. It's actually 57%.
Oh, okay.
I thought it would be higher. I thought it would be higher than, I thought it'd be a lot higher.
But because I did my search as well, I think most people, we think it would be higher, but I also did some search recently on this topic. And I realized how good is it here for women.
Honestly, yeah, true.
And if you speak to people around, they're all like, I got equal chance here, which I didn't even have in France. I feel I have more equal chance here than in France.
But how remarkable is that?
It sounds
I'm like
weird
so
when you
proud
think of it.
to hear that,
It completely breaks the misconception, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So then what was it 20 years ago in the US? It was higher. It was 60%. They went down.
No.
In the 20 years that we've skyrocketed from 30% to 54%. The US has actually gone down from 60% to 57%. So yeah, I just thought that was super interesting. Other just because it's kind of cool. This Khadij Times article. So there was a study that was done called "The State of Motherhood and Ambition in the UAE" in 2005. And they surveyed more than 180 professional mothers in the UAE, and they found that 70% of working mothers have either maintained or strengthened ambition after childbirth.
Wow.
Which was like remarkable. And additionally, 28% of mothers launched a business at some point after having children.
Wow.
So launching a business, I think, is scary. Anytime in your career, it can be quite daunting. But I thought that was remarkable to do that when you've got other things in your life, right? Because the demands of starting a business can be quite singular. It's like the one thing that you're focused on. But if you've got children that you're also raising, it becomes very difficult to do both things at once. But we know several women within the industry who are the same, right? Like I think of Noor. Noor set up her business also recently. And she's a mother of 2, I believe. So
toddlers.
Yeah, toddlers.
I think they are 5 and 2.
Yeah, exactly. So, and there's plenty. I know a bunch that have done the same.
I started when I was pregnant for my first.
Yeah, look, there you go, right?
But I think the UAE for this again is amazing because first of all, you can open a company overnight here.
Yeah.
Not complicated at all.
Yeah.
For anyone.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we have the support system. Like you can have
nannies. 100%. That definitely makes a difference. I think we've done it, like the country itself has done a really wonderful job in creating an environment that is safe, that's a lot of facilities, like wonderful healthcare, wonderful school systems. It's an environment that not only is it safe, but it's also like it's a very ambitious culture here, right? Like it's a very driven culture. The mindset of the rulers here of the whole, like impossible is nothing, we'll build it, it will happen, it's all fine. Like it obviously filters down to the people. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you look at like Sheikh Mohammed and everything that he's done and that mindset, that is the mindset of the people here. But I think we shouldn't be criticizing. We should be given the chance to, I think we need to be on equal footing and prove everything that we can do. So I'm so excited about what the future can be and how with the direction that we're going in, and all of the different things that will change over the years. I think it's phenomenal.
But on the other side, did you struggle because you also have 3 kids?
3 kids, yeah.
And you are also doing so good on business. So what's your secret?
I think I'm crazy. No, I think honestly, it's that's probably that driven mentality. Like my husband and I were having a conversation the other day, and we're renovating our house right now, which is me, right? It's me. It's my world. So it's mainly me that's doing it. And he said to me, he's like, can you just like relax when you're done with renovating the house? Can you just like relax and focus on like one thing, at a time? Because I think there's something about me that I'm not planning it, but I just find the next thing to keep myself busy. Where can we grow here? Where can we grow there? So like the renovating the house thing is a big thing for me. I do a vision board every year. I'm really happy about like all of the things that were achieved this year. But then, I already have plans in place for next year. I didn't tell him, but I already have plans in place for next year. Like with Surge, for example, I want to I don't want to necessarily say exactly what it is we're planning, but to sort of grow it in a slightly different direction and see like how it can evolve, like what will be the next course of evolution for it. Even with my kids. So childbirth and getting pregnant was a really big challenge for me. I'm open to talk about it. I have talked about the challenges that I've had, but that was like a focus for me for several years. It took me 5 years to get to the point of having the 3 kids. and it was quite a challenge, but that was also like sort of my mindset. And I went through a very, very challenging, difficult miscarriage in the middle. Yeah, and a lot of people were really shocked when I kept trying. After, people had said, why would you do this to yourself again? Like, with the troubles that you had. I lost a child at 22 weeks pregnant. And it wasn't just the fact that it happened. It was also everything that happened in the hospital related to that. There's a lot of trauma that's still there. And people would say to me, like, why would you go and do all of that again? Like, all of that can happen. And especially with the condition that I had, it was going to happen again. It was a very high chance that it could happen again. So there was a lot of struggles.
What is the condition you want to share?
Yeah, no, I don't mind. It's strange because with my eldest daughter, I didn't have this problem. She was born full term. But then so I had miscarriage before her, I had her, then I had the next one, was at 22 weeks, and I had something called incompetent cervix. My water broke at 20 weeks. My water just broke. And I got, admitted into the hospital, and they tried to do an emergency cerclage procedure, and it didn't work. And then, well, actually, so that was right before my water broke. It was leaking, and then they tried to do the cerclage, and then my water broke. And I didn't have any fluid around her for 2 weeks. I carried her. And anyway, there's a lot of like really graphic details which were horrible. But basically it was like a really challenging time in my life, and very, very, very difficult. And yeah, people after the fact had said to me, well, you're done now, right? Like, you're done. You're not going to try again after everything that you've been through. I needed a moment for sure where I needed to kind of understand what had happened to my body and understand the risks of trying again. But I do think that my driving force was my daughter, because I wanted her to have a sibling, and to, because I think you think about that as a mother, one day you will pass, but you want to leave a world for your kids where they can thrive. And that was one of the things for me, is that, one day I'll go, but I want to make sure that she has family always around her. So, God, I feel like I'm going to cry.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, so that was very important for me to create an environment for her where she would have siblings. So it drove me to try again. I had another miscarriage after that. And then I went through fertility treatments, and it did get to the point. It really did get to the point where I had said, like, dear God, like, please, this will be the last try. Like, I've done all of this now. This is like another fertility round. I can't do it again. And I got pregnant with twins at that point. And I had the same problem. The fluid was leaking, but I had done a cerclage beforehand. And that protected the pregnancy, but yeah, my fluid was leaking, and then that was it, and I lost my fluid again, and they were born at 28 weeks, and then they were 7 weeks in the hospital in the NICU, and I was working the same day from the hospital because I needed something to take my mind off of everything.
See? Okay.
I needed like to be distracted from things. So I was working in the hospital, and even while I was in the hospital, I was 2 weeks in the hospital before I delivered. I kept working because I needed that. And then when they were in the NICU, I kept working too. Because again, like it helped me to have normalcy in my life still. It helped me to have structure in my life still. So that was the thing. It was like, it was a very challenging period of my life. But I kept going, I didn't want to stop with anything. I kept doing things for Serge, kept doing things with the company. I think that's just kind of how I'm probably wired. And I'm always sort of looking to, like, what's my next goal? What's the next thing that I want to achieve?
Because on top of that, you want to give back. Yeah, I did before preparing this interview. Actually, I didn't know that you are the one behind the design competition at Search for Water. Yeah. So where did this drive come from? Also to give back and to help over 1 million people. I've seen you give water to 1 million.
I think
people.
It's even more than that.
In
actually.
11 countries. That's what I read.
So basically, my whole childhood, my mother was really good about keeping us involved in like a lot of different activities. So I did a lot of, like, even as a child, I did like different charity work. I was a Girl Scout, like a typical American thing probably. And there's like a whole thing that comes along with being a Girl Scout where you're sort of raised with that kind of mindset of charity work. And then in my high school here, in the IB program, we had like a what was it called? CAS or something. And you had like community hours that you had to contribute to. So I was always, as a child, was always involved in these things. And even when I would go to the US over my summer vacations, I would do like Meals on Wheels and Happy to Have for Humanity, where you're building houses for the poor and things like that. So I think it was just like what I was raised with. It was what I knew probably. And I always loved it. And then when I moved back here and got into the industry here, I was sort of thinking, we have all of these networking events that are in our industry, and there's a lot of money that gets spent on these networking events, but who is it benefiting? Who does it go to? And I thought, can we do something that where basically like we still are having that social aspect and people are still having the opportunity of getting together and networking, but we are ultimately doing this for a greater good. And at the time I had met Marita, who she's the executive director of Surge here. And then Shilpa is the founder, and she is based in the US. And they were sort of best friends growing up, and they wanted to launch Surge for Water here in the region. And I just got sent an email, and I thought like, there was something, I'll never forget opening that email. There was just something about it where I guess I somehow knew it was going to change my life. And I was like, this is it. Like, I've got to figure out something with this. And it, honestly, like, people know the story now, but I was in the shower. It's the truth. And I just had this idea, which was basically that I wanted to figure out how we could give back, and could we create a design competition where we basically engaged different designers within the region to design. At that time, it was a piece of furniture. We've already started to evolve a little bit, but to design something that basically people will, it will raise awareness around the global water crisis, because honestly, that, there's plenty of charities out in the world, and I think everybody's doing fantastic work. But to think that there are people out there who don't have access to clean water, it's like a human right. So it just felt like the right thing to kind of partner with. And it's interesting because the idea from the competition actually had come from, I had molded it and crafted it out of something that originally came from my design school. It was a program that you could apply to be in, where they had a textile designer, fashion designer, and an interior designer. The textile designer designed a fabric, gave it to the interior designer, gave it to the fashion designer, and then they each created a piece that was then showcased at a year-end runway show. That was at my design school. I applied for the program and I didn't get in. No, I didn't get in. And then it's so funny because I don't even know if they know, but I turned it into this like whole charity thing that has gone on to raise like millions, for.
So it's a good example of a door closing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I 100% believe in. I think, doors close all the time, and you can always find another way. And then that way potentially takes you on a route or a journey that ends up becoming like a life path that you may not have known before. So yeah, I've always kind of found that as like as an interesting thing. But that's what we did. That's what we we've since done, and now this is going to be the 13th year that we've been doing it. And it is phenomenal. People say to me all the time. So it's the competition that I had thought of, but they were already going to do a gala. So we had kind of brought these two ideas together, and that's how we landed on this. But people tell me it's like it's their favorite night of the year. And I think like even, at the end of the year, standing in that room and looking around and seeing, 400, 500 people, and you think like, how did this happen? Like how did all of these people come together from this tiny little idea that I had in the shower one day? And now it's gone on. It was only imagined actually originally as like a one-off, and it was so successful the first time that we've just continued to do it year on year. But it is definitely something that has fueled who I am as an individual. So even like when I was getting married, and my husband and I, we decided that we were going to have the wedding in Australia because his grandmother was still living and she lived there. So we wanted to do it there. And I had said to him, let's do a charitable and sustainable wedding.
Really?
Yeah. And,
oh my God.
And he said to me,
I never heard that before.
Well, I just thought of it. Like it just, because it just felt like the right thing to do for me. So he had said to me, isn't it enough that we're planning a wedding in a different country? Now you want to do a charitable and sustainable wedding. And I had said, it just feels like the right thing to do, because basically the sustainability part of it, people don't realize how wasteful weddings can be and the amount of trash that is generated in one day. So, we did what we could. People also said, well, you had a wedding in Australia, so people were flying to get there. But it didn't matter where we had it, right? Because, he's from Australia, I'm from the US and the UAE. People were going to fly no matter where we went, right? So we had done that. And I always tell people, don't be bogged down by the level of kind of inspiration. Everything is like one step at a time, and do what you can. So for us, we didn't have any flowers at the wedding. We opted for plants. So my bouquet was actually like succulents. And we ended up, I gave those to my mother-in-law after the fact. They are planted in her garden and still alive today. 7 years later, my bouquet is actually growing in her garden. We actually had other plants that were sort of like suspended around in where the reception was. And we went and donated them to the retirement home that my grandmother-in-law is living in. So there were things like that. We didn't have like any bottled water. Everything was just jugs. I mean, there were some things that were just simple, easy things to do. With the bridesmaids' dresses, I wanted to make sure that these were dresses that they would wear again, not just the one time. So I chose a fabric and I said to them, you send me any design that you want. I'll get your dress made for you here, because we have fantastic tailors in Dubai. Same with my husband. The suits that were made, they were not tuxedos, but they like, he's worn that suit a million times since then. And people, all the groomsmen in the wedding as well, have gone on to do that too. So there were a lot of things from a sustainability perspective that were incorporated. And then in terms of the charitable part, I kind of feel like we are fortunate enough that we have everything. We didn't need gifts. So I just said to people, instead of giving us anything, here's the link to Surge, make a donation to Surge. And that was it. So we ended up building, I think it was 3 wells and a bathroom block in Uganda. And then a month or 2 months after the wedding, we flew to Uganda to see the projects as they were happening.
That's your honeymoon.
So yeah, that was. But my husband's fantastic. He never says like, no, this is crazy, I'm not doing it. He came with me and he contributed in his own way. He's into sports, and so he brought along like an Aussie rules football and a rugby ball, and he was teaching the communities how to play sports. Because I always say like, there was no language, like we couldn't communicate through language, but you can always communicate through like music, through art, through sports, through all of these other avenues. And so he was teaching them how to play a different sport that they weren't familiar with, but in a language they weren't familiar with either. And that was remarkable. So to this day, those projects are still existing in Uganda. And that bouquet of flowers is still living.
You are so inspiring. How can we replicate this in all the weddings now? It could be
honestly, like, maybe
company
people
doing
will,
this. And
yeah, maybe. I feel like, honestly, once I got into it, because I put a lot of the ideas on, I set up an Instagram page, and I was sharing different ideas there for things that you can do. There's so much that's out there. And this was 7.5 years ago. Today, you'd have a lot more resources. ChatGPT could plan a wedding for you.
It would be nice if it became a trend.
I think that it is starting to be.
Okay.
I'm sure I wasn't the only one.
Okay.
I don't know how popular it is, and it's difficult, right? Because people, the way that I looked at it was that our wedding was not just about us. It was about the community and how I maybe that's a strange thing to say, but I wanted it to be larger than us, if that makes sense. I wanted it to have life
that represents
beyond the
your
one
life
day.
and you.
Yeah,
now
maybe,
that I get to know you,
I think that's maybe
that's your
how my brain
personality.
is to a degree.
You are so inspiring.
Thank
so
you.
now people will be thinking, you mentioned you had very hard time in your life, but how about in career? Have you tackled some rejections?
Oh, yeah.
And how do you tackle them?
I've been fired before,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, this was in the US. It was before I had gone back to study interior design. To be fair, it was like I think they fired everyone after 2 weeks, the place that I went to. But it can be daunting, right? Like that can be something that is quite scary as an individual, and upsetting. But it was just like they would hire somebody for 2 weeks and then fire them and then bring somebody else in and fire them. I think that they were just trying to get like maybe cheap talent and have them go. I have no idea. But anyway, like things like that can obviously happen to you. Like I've been rejected from that program that I told you about. you keep pushing. I was valedictorian at my design school. So although I had been rejected by things, I found another way of doing things. Maybe that is very much, the way that I look at things. So there's been different challenges. I mean, on a day-to-day level, clients are challenging. I feel like you have those experiences on a day-to-day level as well. I think as a business owner now as well, there's so much more than just the design piece that you're doing every day. There's the different personalities that are in the office. There's, you're also thinking about how are you going to develop these people, and what are their career paths and what are their ambitions. And it's not just about like you and the business, like who are these people? Because ultimately, in a way, you're kind of, you're responsible for their salaries and their income, which means that indirectly you're also responsible for their lives and their families. And so there's a responsibility that comes along with that. So there's lots of different challenges that come around on a day-to-day basis. I just, I don't know. I just think like I'm very good with stress also, is maybe another thing.
How do you manage stress?
I don't pay attention to it, probably.
Yeah.
I just kind of think like getting angry or upset about stress is not helpful. Stress to a degree is probably on a low level. It's that emotion that can drive you, right? It's like a bit of a fear of something that can drive you. But letting it get to a level where it becomes kind of everything that you feel and you can't move past it is not helpful. So I think I've kind of established that in my mind already, that if I just move past it and look to the solution, look past the rejection, look to the opportunity. That's kind of just the way that I think that you can think. And I know it's difficult for people.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes you kind of think that's the right way to do, but you still get under lots of stress. And also
sure, it's easy to think about like, well, I won't let it bother me, but then how do I not actually let it bother me? People need releases too. I think it's always good to have a release, whether that is some level of exercise or music or whatever it can be. I think if you know what can trigger you and what can relieve you from that, I think that's helpful, just knowing who you are as an individual, to help balance that out. So, but having a good environment around, I think, is also really nice. We try to have a good environment in the office. We try for people to enjoy working together. We do a lot of like team building activities because, of course, like in our world, it's crazy to think that it can be as stressful as it is, because ultimately we're designing beautiful spaces. We're not doctors. We're not saving lives or anything like that. But at the same time, people do get stressed with deadlines, and then maybe it's not a very nice client or whatever it can be the situation. But us having control over our environment and trying to make that like a safe space for people, but also a space that they hopefully enjoy and they enjoy working together. So like I said, we do a lot of like different team building activities. And somebody actually just told me yesterday, we were doing like end of year reviews, and she said that in her previous company, she didn't even know the names of everybody around her.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I don't know how big the company was, but I'm assuming it was quite big.
Big
But we do like that. She was just so happy to see that we do so many different team building and exciting things as well. We've done a lot of like really fun ones. So yeah, I think being in a good environment is also like a very helpful thing to help deal with the level of stress as well.
For sure. It's almost the end already. I think we could talk forever. And I have so many more questions.
Sorry.
But if someone comes to you and is quite junior and they said, Laila, one day I want your job.
Yeah.
What would you tell them? Where should I start?
Sure. I would say, sit with me. I'll help you do it.
Oh, love it.
I love that. I love seeing passion in people. I love, like just offering any kind of advice to see how people can grow. My big thing is I always say to people, talent isn't enough. A lot of people are talented. Work ethic is the thing that you should focus on. And actually, like a lot of people know that I absolutely love Ed Sheeran. And I think that's one of the things that he also says, that he didn't think he was the best singer. By the way, I said this before I heard him say it, but I love the fact that he says it too. He basically says he doesn't think he's the best singer out there, but he can outwork other people. And I think it's that kind of mindset as well. Like I think that talent can help you. Talent can open the door. You can go to get a great portfolio and you'll get an interview. but sit in the room and prove the way that you think, prove, that you have a good attitude, show people who you are as a person, and that will always take you further. So for me, it's really about like passion and work ethic.
Can you break down the work ethic? Because
Yeah.
for you it makes sense, but some people don't know even what's a good work ethic, I feel.
Yeah.
The basics of it.
Yeah, I mean, commitment. I think it's commitment. If you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And if people have a level of expectation that is here, exceeded. I think that's loyalty, I think is also a really, really big thing. And then also just like a shared sense of drive. We work in teams. So making sure that it's not about you, it's about your team. So just making sure that people feel like they're all contributing in certain ways and they're supported, I think is another thing. But ultimately it's just having like a drive, because it's, like I said, it's the commitment to certain things, but I think it's also a matter of goal setting. So it's ambition. You're always wanting to take yourself forward, and take the company forward as well. So, when I was at Perkins, like I said, like I've always had goals and vision boards and things like that. And I wanted for us as an organization to win different awards along the way. And so, there was a couple that I had set my sights on and we did it. And it's that, like you work hand in hand with your company in a lot of ways. So you can figure out how to support them and they will support you. But you just have to show up every day and be ready to work and have a good attitude. And I think then as a mother, that's then where things can, or father, parent, anyway, like you get maybe then once you've proven yourself, then if your child's sick, then your employer would say, it's okay. I know you, I trust you, go do what you need to do with your kid and we'll get there. Whatever it is, I'll help you. Like I would say that to somebody, if there's something wrong, I'll help you to get there. You can't do that. I'll help you to get there. And then they would all say as well, like, it's okay. Like once I've taken care of my child, then, I'll make sure that I meet my commitment as well. So
let's come back a bit, like you earn it because you prove yourself.
Yeah, I think it's that. It's having a good attitude where you're working and knowing people can trust you and can rely on you. It is about proving yourself. Yeah, it's a good way.
Brilliant. Before we close, is there one thing we didn't discuss today and you think it's important for our listeners? One
thing that I would probably advise to different people is I always say it's the why, it's not the what. Why do you do things? And I think that shapes also how I think, whether it's designs that we're working on in the office or whether it is the things that I do in my own life. It's not about what, it's about the why. Why have you chosen that? Why have you chosen to do this? What is your ultimate goal to get there? I think that helps frame how I look at things. So, for example, when young designers come in or they're applying for a job, for example, a lot of times I'll hear them say, I chose this, I chose this, I chose this. I want to hear, why did you choose this? Because that for me, it gives it a story and it gives it something that people can be captivated by, and something that they can feel passionate and inspired by. So that is ultimately, it's all about the why.
So it's a good way for them to prepare for their next interview.
Everything that you're doing, right? Like, but if you're working on a design, why did you choose that material? Why did you choose that shape? Why did you choose that form? Why did you place it there? There has to be a reason.
And as an example, what can be a good answer? For example, if I would ask you, why Say Studio? What's your why?
What's the why in Say Studio? So we wanted to create something that was more bespoke. We wanted to create something that was not a big corporate, but something where we could partner with people and create like bespoke things for individuals. And we wanted to create something that the truth, ultimately, that we would build somewhat of a legacy for our children, that hopefully we would create something that would go on beyond us. That is ultimately the goal. That's
it's a good way to think. Yeah. Every time you answer a question, think of the why.
Think of the why. Yeah. Absolutely.
Lovely. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure and you're so inspiring.
Thank you. I appreciate it.